Hello, Mercer Island families. My name is Andrew Ronser, and I'm the Technology Director for the Mercer Island School District. This video is intended to provide you with some resources to help manage student technology use at home. We understand that it can be difficult to balance working from home and supporting your student with online learning. Please know that our teachers and staff are right there with you, working hard to support your student. I also have 2 children in the Auburn School District, and I can relate to how difficult it can be to keep them engaged and focused on their online learning. I do hope that all of our families are taking time to also count their blessings, as there are a lot of positive and encouraging things happening in our schools, community, and across the country. This video will discuss screen time, the filtering options available on MISD iPads, and options for managing screen time controls available through Apple Screen Time and Xfinity X5. Hi, this is Andrew Ronser, Technology Director for the Mercer Island School District. During the COVID-19 school facility closure, I have been reflecting on screen time. Even before COVID-19, screen time was a highly debated educational topic. With students and teachers interacting in a remote setting, technology is imperative for student-teacher interaction as well as student engagement and learning. Today, I'd like to share with you some of our current thinking about screen time and how the quality of the technology interaction is a more important variable than the quantity of time spent with technology when evaluating the impact of screen time on our learners. The U.S. Department of Education distinguishes between passive consumption and active consumption of content. Passive use of technology generally occurs when children are consuming content such as watching a program on television, a computer, or a handheld device without accompanying reflection, imagination, or participation. Active use occurs when children use technology to engage in meaningful learning or storytelling experiences. Some examples include sharing their experiences by documenting them with photos and stories, recording their own music, using video conferencing software to communicate with others, or using devices to make digital art. Using technology to demonstrate a student's comprehension during a lesson is another way to use technology actively. When our students use technology within our school buildings, we try to ensure that there is a balance between technology-based learning activities and non-technology-based learning activities. An example of active consumption of content using technology might be using Nearpod to guide students through a lesson. During the guided lesson, students have the ability to follow along with the teacher's presentation on their device. The teacher then has the opportunity to poll the students to gauge comprehension and provide immediate feedback. The poll can then lead into a class discussion that can help reinforce deep learning for our students. Switching between consuming the content in the presentation to engaging in a class-wide discussion provides a balance between technology-based and non-technology-based learning activities. During our school closures, our teachers are continuing to use similar tools to engage and teach our students. By incorporating video conferencing tools, teachers have the opportunity to facilitate group discussions and present content to continue teaching our students when we cannot all be present within the same room. Consequently, this has led to our students spending more time than usual on screens. With this increased time on screens, I urge parents to think of screen time as more than just a singular number and to consider how their students are using the screens and technology. To help balance physical activity versus electronic access, our teachers will continue to offer daily movement activities or ask students to demonstrate their comprehension through drawing pictures or creating physical diagrams. As a district, we will continue to incorporate ways to engage our students outside of using video conferencing solutions and screen time. And hopefully, we will be able to move back towards teaching our students in our physical schools soon. Thank you. Hello, Mershon families. I wanted to create a short video that demonstrates how the at-home filter that's available through the district works on your student's iPad. If you're not familiar with the at-home filter, we can configure some settings and push them wirelessly to your student's device that will filter their device as if they are on the school campus. When that happens, you can see here in the top right corner, there is a small VPN icon, and they'll receive this iBoss Cloud Connector app. When they open the app, there's not a whole lot to it other than it will show that the configuration is successful. However, with those settings in place, it will filter your child's device as if they're on the school campus. And so I'll give you some examples. One thing I wanted to demonstrate was that it will block YouTube. However, videos that we've approved through the district will still play on your child's iPad. So for example, here's the latest video from the middle school principals. And you can see that I am able to play that video properly. And if I wanted to, I could go to, let's say, a full screen mode.
Hi, IMS families. I hope you're doing really well. We wanted to connect with you today to bring you IMS
I'm going to go ahead and close that.
6.
Some other things that I wanted to show is, as part of the filtering, we do block online games. So here's an example where games.com is blocked. We also block online social media. So you can see here that we've blocked Twitter. Similarly, we've blocked the Facebook app. And we do block online entertainment such as Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, and other online entertainment apps. One thing I wanted to show you is with Google, if your child did an inappropriate search, for example, in this particular case, I'm just going to search for something inappropriate like a drug. You can see that it actually won't let that search complete. However, if I go back to Google and I search for something else, such as pizza delivery or news, fine, those searches will complete. Similarly, if I search for something like paint, that search completes. But if I change that to body paint, it does block that search. So in addition to blocking inappropriate websites, we also filter out inappropriate search terms and images that are returned in those search results. Some other things I want to demonstrate is we do allow access to educational content. So for example, here's an online news site, CNN. They can also access, of course, MISD.schoology.com. And that's going to ask me to sign into my Google account to access Schoology, but that does work. But there's a lot of online resources that are available. However, we do try to block access to inappropriate content and some of the content that we don't want them spending their time on, like online entertainment, social media. We do block references to drugs, alcohol, pornography. Those types of items are blocked as well. Another thing I want to demonstrate here is Kahoot. Is an application that we use within our schools. And even though it is classified as learning games, because it's educational games, we do allow access to items like Kahoot. However, if we tried going to Roblox, that would be blocked. If you would like to have your child's device filtered, we are already filtering all of our kindergarten through 6th grade devices. However, if you're a 7th through 8th grade parent and you would like your child's device filtered, please reach out to us and you'll see the email addresses come up here shortly. For the middle school, it's ims.tex@mercerislandschools.org. And then for our high school, it's hs.tex@mercerislandschools.org. I also wanted to talk a little bit about what happens when the students try to remove these settings. If a student tries to delete the iBoss iCloud Connector app. It will allow them to delete the app. However, when they delete the app, it will actually cut off all internet access to the device for several hours until our system pushes the app back onto the device. In addition, in the Settings app, if they try to go into General and this device management profile, they will not be able to remove our mobile device management profile. And if they try to turn off this VPN, it will actually turn itself back on within about 20 seconds. So we're hoping that this will help prevent students from trying to bypass and remove these settings without your permission. Thanks a lot. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact us. This video will demonstrate how to use the screen time settings in iOS 12 to set limits for screen time on Apple iPads. These settings are available on all Apple devices that are capable of installing iOS 12 and not just MISD school-issued iPads. The screen time settings allow you to generate weekly reports about how much time your child spends on their devices and allows you to set a schedule for time away from the screen. I've actually already opened up the Settings app on this device here. If you're unsure if you have iOS 12 is currently the latest iOS available from Apple. If you do have a software update available on your device, I do recommend that you install all updates. In order to do that, if you go to the General section and click Software Update, it will tell you whether your device is up to date or whether there's a software update available for your device. Again, if there is an update available for your device, I do recommend, and MISD recommends that you do install those updates to be able to take advantage of some of these newer features. If you do have iOS 12 installed on your device, over here on the left-hand side, you will see Screen Time. And when you click on that, you'll see this option to turn on Screen Time. When I click that, I get a nice summary of some of the settings that are available within Screen Time. Again, as I mentioned, you are able to get a weekly report with insights about how your child is using their device. You can set a schedule for time away from the screen and also set daily time limits for app categories that you want to manage. You can add some additional content and privacy restrictions above and beyond the restrictions that the MISD has already applied to MISD iPads. And then you can set a screen time passcode to prevent your child from turning off the settings that you've implemented. I'm going to go ahead and hit continue. And the first question it's going to ask me is if this iPad is for myself or my child. I'm going to say that this is my child's iPad. And it's going to take me through a wizard for setting these settings. Again, I'm going to start by setting a downtime. And I'm going to say I want my downtime to start at 9 p.m. instead of 10 p.m. And then ending at 7 a.m. is perfectly fine. So I'm going to go ahead and set that downtime. The next screen here asks me about my app limits. And this is going to set a daily time limit for app categories that I want to manage. And after this limit has been reached, your permission will be required to allow more time. One thing you'll notice here is you can set an app limit for all apps and categories, which means that your device will only be able to be used for that amount of time every day, regardless of whether they're doing educational activities, research activities, or if they're playing games or accessing social networking. Or if you click Show All Categories, you can restrict simply things like social networking, games, entertainment, other app categories like that, and just set an app limit for those categories, at which point they'll be able to continue to use educational apps or access the internet. They just won't be able to play social networking, games, entertainment beyond the app limit that you've set. So once I've selected my categories, for example, if I select social networking, games, and entertainment, I can come down here and set a time amount and say, I really only want to allow, let's say, maybe an hour and a half for those type of activities. And again, you can choose what time is appropriate. The other option that you'll have is, as we finish this and we get into the settings, you can add additional time limits. So you can set a time limit to say, well, I only want the iPad to be used for anything for
6 hours a day, but I want to limit games to 30 minutes, or games, entertainment, and social media to 30 minutes. You have quite a bit of options here, and I'll show you that in a second. So I'm going to go ahead and set this app limit. This is just telling me that I can set some additional content restrictions and privacy settings. I'm going to go ahead and hit continue, and then it's going to prompt me to enter a parent passcode. I'm going to go ahead and enter a 4-digit number, and this, again, is a code that you would not want to share with your child. If they had this passcode, they'd be able to disable the settings that you've put in place here. So once it was giving me a little time check there. Once I've set these settings, I can then go back in and confirm that I've set the settings the way that I'd like, as well as add some additional app limits. So if I go back through here, once this is set up, if I click on downtime, I'm going to enter my passcode. I can change this downtime, and right here is a slider bar that says block at downtime. So what's going to happen is the way that it's currently configured, starting at 9 p.m., the iPad will essentially be unavailable. It's going to prevent the user from using this device, and that will end at 7 a.m. Again, if I go back into my app limits, right now I've limited social networking, games, and more to 1 hour and 30 minutes, but I can add additional limits here. For example, if I want to limit maybe everything that's classified as other to 4 hours, and I'm going to block that at the end of the time limit, I can also customize the days to say, oh, you know what, I'm okay with them using the device a little bit more on Saturday and Sunday, but definitely Monday through Friday, I want to limit those. So I can change this and say, okay, I'll allow them to use maybe 8 hours on Saturday and Sunday. And again, this is completely up to you. I'm choosing some arbitrary numbers here to put into place just to demonstrate some of the functionality. This isn't necessarily a recommendation for how much time you should allow for social networking, games, entertainment, or other apps there. So again, I can choose those app limits. The other thing I can do here is choose apps that I want to allow at all times. So if I go on the always allowed, I can say, well, yeah, I want them to be able to use, and on this particular iPad, there's a lot of games, but let's say I want them to be able to use Schoology at any time. At this point, I'm going to remove messages. I'm going to remove FaceTime for this. Maps doesn't need to be in here. So what will end up happening is Schoology will be allowed past that time limit that I set. Schoology will be allowed past that time limit that I set, but other apps will not be. So at that point, when I've selected the apps that I want to allow at all times, I can go ahead and move on there. And then under the content and privacy restrictions, I can further restrict some of these settings beyond what the district has already restricted. This option right here allows me to change my screen time passcode. If for some reason my child has figured out what my passcode is, I can always change it. And I can also share this because if I'm signed into an Apple ID or an iCloud ID across multiple devices, I can share these settings across multiple devices. So that way, it's not just limiting them to 4 hours or, in this case, if I look at an hour and 30 minutes on this device, but then they can play an additional hour and 30 minutes on their phone. If you share that across all their devices, it will limit them to an hour and 30 minutes across all their devices and not just one particular device. So as I mentioned, there's some pretty granular settings that you can set here in screen time, and it gives you a little bit more control over how much time your child is spending on their device. This video will demonstrate how to use the Xfinity X5 service to set bedtimes for certain devices, pause all users' devices, and set limits on screen time. The Xfinity X5 service is only eligible for Xfinity subscribers who also have an X5 wireless router. This happens to be the service that they're showcasing in their recent commercials. And if you're unsure if you have an X5 capable router, you can call the Xfinity support number and talk to a customer service rep. In order to configure these settings, you'll want to first use a web browser to go to internet.xfinity.com. Again, that's internet.xfinity.com. When you first go to the website, you will be required to log in with your Xfinity username and password. I've already logged in, so when I go to the service, it automatically takes me to my dashboard. The dashboard here shows me which profiles I've already configured and a quick summary of who's been the most active on the internet in the last 24 hours. In order to adjust settings, like setting bedtimes or limits on screen time, or to create a new profile, you'll want to go to the People tab. Within the People tab, it'll show you all of the profiles that you've created. You can see here I've actually already created profiles for some of my family members. In order to create a new profile, there's a button here in the top right corner to create a profile. When you click on that, it's going to ask you to set a name for that profile. I'm going to just use NW Owls. And it's going to ask you to choose an avatar. So I'm going to go and choose the owl there. When I click Create, it's going to show me a list of devices that are currently on my network or that have connected to my network. So even if the device isn't currently active, I can go here and I can choose something like this iPad and maybe this iPhone and assign it to that profile. So I'm going to go and click Assign. We're going to wait for this to finish. It says Profile Created and Device Assigned. I'm going to hit Close. And now here's my new profile, NW Owls. It shows me that there's 3 devices on this profile. It shows me the 3 devices, and currently 0 are connected. In order to set a restriction on a bedtime or screen time, I'm going to go ahead and click this More button next to the profile. So if I click More, it's going to take me into the settings for this profile. Again, it shows me which profile I'm in. I'm in the NW Owls profile. I can pause all of this user's devices right then and there. Or down here, I can change the bedtime or set an active time alert. I'm going to start off by setting a bedtime. So if I click Edit here, the first thing I can do is set a bedtime for school nights and weekend nights. So I'm going to start off by school nights and say, all right, I really don't want this user using their internet devices, let's say after 9 p.m. And maybe they get up early, so between 9 p.m. and 6:30 a.m., I no longer want this user using these devices. But on weekend nights, they're able to use their device until 11, and we'll set the wake-up time at 6:30 a.m. as well. So again, what this is going to do is between the hours of 9 p.m. and 6:30 a.m. on Sundays through Thursdays, the devices will all be paused, and the user will not be able to access internet during that time. And on weekend nights, that same restriction will apply between the hours of 11 p.m. and 6:30 a.m. If I hit Apply Changes, it's going to set the bedtime schedule for this user, and those settings will now appear here. The other thing I can do is set an active time alert, and this is basically a screen time. So it says, set an alert to be aware of how long they're active on your home network. Choose a length of time, and we'll notify you just before that time runs out. That way you can pause the device or you can find out why that user is using so much screen time. On weekdays, you can set that to whatever you'd like, anywhere between 30 minutes to 12 hours. Let's say I want to limit weekday internet use to 2.5 hours, but on the weekend days, I'll let them use 4 hours. And what will happen is you'll actually get an alert indicating when this user is starting to reach that time limit. I'm going to go ahead and hit Apply Changes. And it'll show me the active time alerts that are in place. This also has some parental controls. And if we hit Edit there, we can turn on the parental controls. However, currently, you're not able to choose what types of sites are restricted. It simply just says the viewable content will be deemed appropriate for all ages. I've played around with this a little bit and haven't quite figured out exactly what they're filtering. but it does have this control option that you can choose to turn off or on. I'm going to go and leave it off for right now. And now that this profile is set up, you can see because it's actually after 9:30 as I'm creating this video, on school nights, the bedtime is 9 p.m. So it actually put this user in bedtime mode, and they're in bedtime mode until 6:30 a.m. If the user needs to be able to access their devices, you can just click this wake up, and it'll actually wake up their devices. So let's say they've got a big homework assignment due the next morning. They're going to be working late on it, and they need to use it past 9 p.m. I can click wake up, and this is going to unpause all of this user's devices, and then the bedtime mode will go into effect the following night. So I'm going to go ahead and hit wake up, and it will now wake up that device, and it tells me that there's 0 paused devices and 0. Right now, none of those devices are connected. But if the user's devices were connected, it would show how many devices were connected. Similarly, you can see here, I've actually got some bedtime settings set up for my kids where their devices at this point will not be available until 6 a.m. and 7 a.m. My son tends to get up a little bit earlier. So we have that functionality there, and I can see exactly which devices are in this bedtime mode. There's actually also a corresponding X5 app that you can install on your phones so that you can actually adjust these settings directly from your phone rather than having to log into your laptop or your computer and turn these on. And there's been many times when my kids have come to me over winter break. For example, I didn't adjust these settings. They were up a little bit later and realized, oh, my devices are paused or I can't access the internet. And I was able to wake those devices up directly from my phone. That's essentially how you would go through and set up the settings for bedtimes and pausing and setting limits on screen time. Overall, I felt like the service has worked really well, and it's been fairly reliable, and it's given me just some more insight and control over when my kids get to access the internet and use their devices. One thing that's been really great is because my son's Xbox also uses the internet connection, when I set the bedtime for all the devices, that includes his Xbox, and I can also see how much time he's spending, on that particular device as well. I hope this has been helpful. Thank you very much.